Hello everyone, welcome to Coffee Break. It's Steve Barrett here. I'm the editorial director of PRWeek, here with another show. Delighted to be with Curtis Sparrer, who's principal at Bospar. And Curtis, welcome to the show. Great to have you here. I'm loving the backdrop, by the way.
Ta-da! San Francisco's best. Thanks for having me.
He's got the Peloton, he's got the PRWeek Awards, and a nice little spirits tray there for a cocktail later, so that's good. Now, I was really interested to speak to you, Curtis, because you've always been a virtual agency, and clearly over the past 15 months, we've all kind of got used to that. So you were ahead of the curve on that. How are you perceiving that now, having had everybody had to get used to it, in terms of the benefits of virtual working versus going, working out of a firm hardcore office?
I'm perceiving it as a feeling of, well, will people like stay or will they go? I mean, I could sing the song, but I really don't have a voice for karaoke. And I'm just wondering.
The Clash version, you could get away with that one.
I'm so bad I got booed in Japan, and that's the most polite country on earth. And so the point is, I just wonder how many agencies will jettison their physical offices. I think they should. I really don't think there is a need for physical offices. I think we've all kind of figured out how to do this. But I think some places will have this bit of inertia, or we'll just hit the snooze button about, oh, we'll figure it out later. But I think small to mid-sized agencies should wake up and just get rid of the physical brick and mortar and embrace virtual.
What's the key to being truly creative in a virtual environment? Because, it is a creative business. You do bounce ideas off each other. How do you ensure you can still get that level of creativity when you're not in person with your teams?
I think smaller groups are better. And I also think the it must suck factor is key. So having small groups and then really tearing an idea apart afterward and saying, but how does it suck? How would someone possibly say it would suck? And then really tearing it apart and going back together. I also think that better ideas are the ones where you give yourself a lot more time so that you are thinking about it in the shower or at the gym or at a socially distanced picnic where you can really play with something. I find that I'm not that creative when I'm just told go. But when I'm giving myself the luxury of a few days or even a week, I get a lot smarter and better with an idea. And I find the same is true with my colleagues.
That's a good point, because one of the, I think, trends in working from home is that people have been working longer hours, haven't they? They've been going straight to their desk in the morning. They've been staying there later at night, and they're getting a bit burnt out. And that, as you said, is not a recipe for great creativity. So how do you ensure that you don't, as a virtual agency, have burnt out staffers who are doing really long hours all the time?
At Bospar, we've been doing this since 2015, before the cool kids were doing it. And we've been giving everyone more days off. We take every federal holiday off. We give people an extra week off. We don't believe in the whole idea of the, use all the PTO in creation, where it's unlimited PTO, because we think that doesn't actually happen. So we give people extra weeks. We also give people mental health days. So we're big believers in extra days, first of all, for that. We also are big believers in making sure that people feel energized by creative new challenges. And so, case in point, we had a company come to us that was so outside our technological kind of ideation of ourselves that we thought, it's not us, but let's try it anyway. And it was All Points North Lodge. They came to us because they were fighting with a member of the Kardashian clan, as keeping up with the Kardashians. And we found that by doing something like that, it really jazzed everyone's creative juices in a way that nothing else would. And so by doing things like that, by really challenging and testing ourselves, we find that people, really get going.
Yeah. Do clients expect you to still go visit them, or is that mostly done virtual as well? And how do you handle that if you've got people coming in from, different parts of the country?
I have not had a client ask me to visit them since. I've even casually dropped that, hey, I'm going to get my second vaccination, so I'll be in New York. And a client will be like, oh, that's really great. I'm really happy for you. Go and So I don't think anyone's really excited about that. And I think since the lockdown has happened, everyone's realized that you don't need a meeting. You don't need the commute. And I think the great thing for agencies is that a lot of agencies have seen a tremendous increase in business, a tremendous increase in productivity. And I think that is in part because the lockdown really kind of focused us. And by cutting down on the commuting and the waste of water cooler time, gossip and stuff like that, I think all agencies became very, very productive and very, very focused. And I'm hoping that post-lockdown, we can still channel that and still be very, very productive as a sector and not lose that ability.
Do you think we'll go back to the old ways, or is this a new reality? And how do you see that panning out? Because the bigger agencies have got a much bigger footprint, and they've already been, reducing their real estate and reducing their office spaces, and there will be a hybrid involvement. But things do tend to revert, don't they, sometimes? What do you think is going to happen?
I know there is a gravity to the way it used to be, but I also think that this has been such a profound moment. And because we're in it, we don't get just how profound it is. I don't think we're ever going back to the way it used to be. And I think that we realize now that a lot of the things we used to do were really silly and really dumb. And I think we're always now going to think, can this be a Zoom? Can this be an email? Can this be a Slack? Do we really have to go and travel all the way here? Do we have to even meet in person for this? I will really be surprised about physical in-person meetings. And I also think there's going to be kind of this germ phobia or virus phobia that will be residual throughout at least the rest of the year. So I think this is going to be with us much longer than we realize.
Yeah, public health, the communications is going to be through the lens of public health across the board, isn't it? And the way we live our lives. So that's a bit about, you're a big fan of San Francisco. We've heard about lots of people leaving New York and San Francisco as well. You did that fantastic work about not calling it San Fran, which I have guilty as charged. I have occasionally said San Fran, and I always think, oh my God, Curtis is not going to be happy with me. But how is the city? Because we've heard people moving to Austin or moving to other parts of the country. How's it doing?
I was thinking that this would be the time we could get a house. And so far, that's not paying off. It is not the moment we thought it would be. So, still in this glamorous one-bedroom apartment, and maybe for some time. And whereas I have heard a lot of people leaving, I have not really seen that. And I feel like that has since cooled down a lot. And that's the sort of numbers I've seen as well, where people are thinking, you know what, I'm staying put. What I am also seeing is where Austin is hot. Now it seems that Austin is also maybe overheated, and people are looking to other markets in Texas, such as Dallas. And so that's a part of what I'm seeing as well.
Yeah, and we've seen that with Portland and Seattle, haven't we, where they got really hot as well with people who couldn't afford to maybe stay in the Bay Area. But it'll be interesting to see how that trend plays out. Now, you were telling me you've hired your first head of DE&I. Tell us a bit about why you did that and what that function will be responsible for.
Sana Javid is amazing, and we hired her as our VP of DE&I because she is really dedicated to making sure that we're looking for people in places that we wouldn't think. I am, of course, looking for people with a former journalistic background, and you could say that's my bias. But she knows people in other pockets that I wouldn't, have a connection to. And I think that it's important for anyone when you're serious about diversity to really find people who are outside of your, 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, to really find those people who bring something richer. Because as communicators, we need to communicate to a wide swath of people. And we also need to get out of our own bubble. We need to get out of our own groupthink. And that's why Sana is so important to this role. And that's why we at Bospar are so proud of this hire.
Now, we've talked before about you're a gay man working in PR. I think most people probably perceive PR as quite a gay-friendly profession, especially in comparison to some others. But still, as young PR professionals who may be LGBTQIA coming up in the profession, it's important for them to have role models. And maybe tell us about your experience as a young PR pro. Did you feel you had role models you could aspire to emulating and look up to?
The thing is that I was doing this in the tech field. And because of that, it's a lot of women and a lot of programmers. And so I really felt like I was a square peg. And so I remember very vividly wearing a UT Austin t-shirt, and one of the programmers came up to me and said, "Yo, dude, cool game. What'd you think? Oh my God." And I looked at him and was like, the shirt was cute. And he's like, you didn't see the game, man? And I wasn't sure if I needed to butch it up, yeah, man. But I always felt that way. And so frequently when I would go into meetings, I would kind of get that once over, and I would even hear things like, "Oh, wow, he's really gay." And sometimes I would be told, "Hey, the CEO really respects you, but he really feels you're very light in the loafers. So could you talk in a really deep voice?" And so the thing that kind of helped me a little bit was when these kind of makeover reality shows would come out. And so I would say, "Hey, you've seen that, like the Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. I'm like that. I'm a makeover guy, and I'm going to make you over for your PR moment." And these CEOs would be like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's it. I get it." And so at least there was that kind of media moment where they would, see me in that lens as opposed to some other lens that wasn't as favorable. And so that really helped. But there were not a lot of other people like me that I was meeting. Now, there may have been other places and I just wasn't cool enough to find them. But that was the situation I found myself when I started my PR career. And that may have been because I started off in boutique agencies. And so I think that it's important for PR people, whatever stripe you are, to find someone who's kind of like you, no matter how flawed, no matter how crazy, and to get a sense of what they did to get ahead so you can use that as a template for your own career. And I think that's, hard to do sometimes, but it's important.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard recently about Travis Kalanick, haven't we? There was a very bro culture at Uber. Apparently, his new company. But then you've got people like Tim Cook becoming CEO at Apple, and so you have a CEO of one of the biggest companies in the world who's gay. So do you think things have changed, or do you think there's still a problem with that bro culture in the Silicon Valley and the tech sphere?
Part of it was me, feeling insecure about how programmers would react, because it's very, bro forward, I guess you could say. And, Tim Cook waited a while before he publicly declared.
He did.
And so we need to create a culture where people can feel good about declaring their party, if you will. And I think that's an important aspect of that, is that we need people to feel embraced and recognized and welcomed for that. And, the other part about that is that the programmer culture is such that we need to, make that more integrated. And, that's why Girls Who Code is so important. Black Girls Who Code is so important. We need to make it not, monolithic. We need to make sure that that's integrated. And so, that's why DEI is so important, is so that it's not this one thing, but it's many things, so that, people feel like there's a place for them at the table.
Totally agree, Curtis. And hopefully we can see a lot more of that over the coming months and years. Thank you so much for joining us on Coffee Break. It was great fun to chat to you.
Thanks for having me, Steve.